writing about how he can want to do the right thing and then not do it. Or how he can decide to avoid doing the wrong thing and then find himself doing that very thing. Paul thinks that the Romans and many of us may be fighting those same battles, and he asks the rhetorical question, is there any help for me? And here is the answer. With the arrival of Jesus, the Messiah, that faithful dilemma resolved. Those who entered into Christ being here for us no longer have lived under a continuous low-lying black cloud. A new power is in operation. The Spirit of life in Christ, like a strong wind, has magnificently cleared the air, freeing you from a faded lifetime of brutal tyranny at the hands of sin and death. God went for the jugular when he sent his own Son. He didn't deal with the problem as something remote and unimportant. In his Son Jesus, he personally took on the human condition, entered the disordered mess of struggling humanity in order to set it right once and for all. The law code, weakened as it always was by fractured human nature, could never have done that. The law always ended up being used as a band-aid of sorts on sin instead of a deep healing of it. And now what the law code asked for but we couldn't deliver is accomplished as we, instead of redoubling our own efforts, simply embrace what the Spirit is doing in us. Those who think they can do it on their own end up obsessed with measuring their own moral muscle, but never get around to exercising it in real life. Those who trust God's actions in them find that God's Spirit is in them, living and breathing God. Obsession with self in these matters is a dead end. Attention to God leads us out into the open, into a spacious and free life. Focusing on the self ignores God. It ends up thinking more about self than God. That person ignores who God is and what God is doing. And God isn't pleased by being ignored. But if God himself has taken up residence in your life, you can hardly be thinking more of yourself than of God. Anyone, of course, who has not welcomed this invisible but clearly present God, the Spirit of Christ, won't know what we're talking about. But for you who welcome God in whom he dwells, even though you still experience all the limitations of sin, you yourself experience life on God's terms. It stands to reason, doesn't it, that if the alive and present God who raised Jesus from the dead moves into your life, he'll do the same thing in you that he did in Jesus, bringing you alive in himself. When God lives and breathes in you, and he does, as surely as he did in Jesus, you are delivered from that dead life. With God's Spirit living in you, your body will be as alive as Christ. There ends our reading. Would you join me in our prayer of confession?